Hi, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. This session is going to be on working with tribal gaming in the United States, and I'm very honored to have some great guests today for you. I'm going to start with the bios. First, we've got Rebecca George. Rebecca has been employed with the Washington Indian Gaming Association since 2010. Rebecca was named the Executive Director in 2018. Prior to her role as the Executive Director, she was the Deputy Director of the organization. Prior to joining WIGA, she worked for the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, advocating social and economic development for Indian tribes. Next, we've got Russell Witt. Russ is the current Director of Central Determinant Gaming at Incredible Technologies and has over 15 years of experience working with tribal operators and tribal governments. Prior to Russ joining Incredible Technologies, he was previously a Director of Tribal Government Relations and Business Development at Ainsworth Game Technology, and the National Director of Tribal Development at Gaming Laboratories International, or GLI. Lastly, we have Marcus Yoder. Marcus is the current Senior Vice President of Sales for GAN, a gaming technology company. His previous roles include Vice President, Regulated Markets and Business Development at Gamblet Gaming, Executive Director of Sales and Business Development for International Gaming Technology, or IGT, and several other leadership roles at multiple tech companies. Marcus has been working in tribal gaming for 11 years. My name is Jason Rosenberg. Everyone calls me Wolf. I'm the CEO of American iGaming Solutions. We're a consulting company and education company that works with tribes and commercial casinos in the United States to get them into online gaming or sports betting or esports or any new gaming technology. So that's where, and I have about 9 years of experience working with tribes. So that's who we all are. So let's dive into the questions real quick. This first section, we're going to be discussing how tribal gaming differs from commercial gaming in the United States. And Russ, the first question is going to be for you. Can you give a brief overview of IGRA and how tribal gaming has evolved in the United States since it passed?
Yes, Wolf. So IGRA, better known as the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, that was a piece of federal legislation that was passed in 1988. Prior to that, you had tribes that were doing like high stakes bingo, like the Seminole tribe of Florida. You also had the Cabazons in California also doing high stakes bingo. And, tribes were starting to kind of grow in their gaming, the gaming entity started growing. The federal government looked at IGRA as a way to kind of place framework around that. So basically what it did was define the types of classes of gaming. So when everybody hears the term, well, this is class 3 gaming or class 2 or class 1 gaming. Class 1 gaming are traditional games and events that tribes have been doing forever, and those are not regulated by the state or the federal government. Class 2 is known as games of bingo or games that are similar to bingo. Tribes are only subordinate to the federal government when it comes to class 2. So there is no powers that the states hold over tribes for class 2. And then class 3 is simply everything that's not class 1 or class 2. That would be the traditional, more Las Vegas style table games and slot machines as we know them. Those require a compact with the tribe and the state to work out all kinds of issues like number of games, if there's any revenue sharing, things of that nature through there. Since IGRA's inception and in 1988, when it was actually written into law, tribal gaming has exploded since then. So gaming has grown in almost every market in the country. Tribal gaming now exceeds commercial gaming as far as gross gaming revenue. And that's happened for the last, I think, 3 years. And it really kind of set that precedence of tribes being able to go in and effectively game, and then if they choose to go into a compact, they can do that. But the document itself, for when it was written, one of the real beautiful things about IGRA is it was written with the future in mind. So it was very keen to not have any sort of limitations on technology, which have really allowed the tribes to go into and bring in all forms of gaming. So without those certain provisions in that regulatory framework, I don't know if tribal gaming would be successful as it is today. So really have to look back and look at all the tribal leaders and tribal elders that worked very hard on that document and negotiated with the government to come out with that framework, because there was a lot of concessions that were made. But that document is really the framework of what has propelled tribal gaming, through the years.
Thank you, Russ. Rebecca, can you just briefly describe the role of state compacts and how they affect sovereign tribal nations?
I think you hit on a great point about the difference, and the Supreme Court case that you mentioned being the court decision came down that said any gambling that the state is offering, the tribes can also offer. So that has become what we all call Indian gaming, and it is like state gaming. So here in this state, we've got the state lottery system and we have the tribal lottery system that's based on the state's tribal lottery or the state's lottery system. So I think there's a real distinction in understanding first where the money goes, right? And that you're working with a sovereign nation. And there's a big difference in approach and end game and what Indian gaming is working for. So IGR gave the states a right that it wouldn't have otherwise had, jurisdiction it wouldn't have otherwise had into Indian country, which required the negotiation of our state tribal compact. And we in Washington, and every state is going to be different based on their constitution and their laws. Washington is like no other. And so each market is unique. And something I think that starting with a basis of IGRA and what Indian gaming is doing to benefit the people for us here at Washington.
Thank you. Marcus, you've worked with a lot of tribes and a lot of commercial casinos as well. And, we have, just like the UKGC has, they operate off of the laws of England, and they write the regulations and standards and enforce those. And you have the operators, and they all work together. Here in US states, we have a gaming commission that works with the operators. They set the regulations and the standards according to that state's laws. So in tribal government, in tribal gaming, we also have, there's a government, there's a gaming commission, and an operator. And I'm just curious if you can comment on any major differences or similarities between those organizations when commercial gaming versus tribal gaming.
On multiple different fronts. So first of all, on the licensing front, a state like New York or Arizona, you have to both get a license from the state of Arizona, and then you have to get a license from the Tribal Gaming Commission. Usually the state is a little more onerous in terms of the process and the documentation. But then the Tribal Gaming Commission and their licensing process will feed off of that and say, okay, but we also have this requirement that you need to either explain, fulfill, or provide this documentation. So I think I've said this before. If you're planning on coming to the U.S., you better hire a really good compliance team, really good regulatory affairs team as well. The interesting thing of dealing with some of the commercial, especially major corporate commercials of BetMGM, Caesars, Penn, on the land-based side at least, is that there is very much a sense of quarter over quarter, right? They're public companies, or many of them are, and they need to be driving to that. So therefore, the management team also drives to that. Whereas with some of the tribal organizations we've worked with, you get a little bit of time because they're taking a 100-year view, not a quarter-year view, because the people of the tribe will persist, and those people need to be taken care of. So therefore, the tribal council will convey to casino management, okay, this one we're going to try, and yep, it might not perform exactly as the best IGT game or the best incredible tech game, but we're gonna let it go because we think it's going to help us in the future. So I think a lot of tribal entities, both on the tribal council and government side, and that flows into the management team, can take a longer view than a lot of the commercial guys.
Great point. Thank you. Thanks, Marcus.
Can
I want to.
Can I add
please
one
hop
thing
right
that,
in. Yeah.
that I should have said about IGRA and state compacts is that a couple of important other points that came out of IGRA is that the state and the tribes are named as co-regulators. So the tribe as being the primary the primary regulator, and the state being a co-regulator. And so that also is a very unique relationship. The other thing that IGRA laid out was that the profit from this government gaming must benefit the Indians, basically, must benefit the tribal government. And so that's the basis of how it needs to be, in which we operate.
Great point. I'd like to, we're going to kind of switch it up from kind of how tribal gaming differs from commercial gaming, or how it's similar, to really dive into opportunities and challenges. So starting with the opportunities, Marcus, what opportunities do you see in the near future for gaming suppliers that are outside of the US that want to work in tribal gaming here in the United States? Is it content, platform, RGS services? Where do you think the opportunities are?
Content is always going to be king, right? A platform decision is, ERP, enterprise resource planning. It's an Oracle decision. It's a SAP. It's a use of which casino management system you're going to use, because that's a 5 to 7 year decision. And so therefore, the decision processes, at least for platform, are long. I think our fastest has been 4 months, and our longest was literally 364 days. And because it's a big decision. Then you also have the balance between, okay, are you a company that's coming in that is going to attempt to do a market access deal, or are you going to come in as a B2B supplier? I think for my personal opinion and our approach in general is that, no, this is just another, if it's going to be online, if it's going to be sports betting, this is just, in air quotes, another aspect that the tribe needs to have 100% control over. So for instance, we're not fans of the market access deal. Now, that's partially because, we're not one of those companies, but at the end of the day, it's around who really has that player at the end of the day. And if you do strike a market access deal, or a tribe strikes a market access deal, and they don't have 100% control of that player, then at the end of 7 years, what are they left with? So we're very much, right in line with self-determination and the ability to control that data and really maintain the players. So I think if you're coming into the US, you need to have that understanding of especially how tribal operators and tribal governments view the value of the database that they already own, and what that database can be, and just be sensitive to that.
Yeah, the whole market access argument is another segment that we could spend hours on. So I fully agree with you there. Russ, Marcus mentioned something about getting prepared or getting a compliance team if you're planning on coming here. You're kind of my moral compass, so I want to ask you, what can you do to prepare for the opportunity to work with tribal gaming? Is it preparing for licensing? Is it building relationships, or educating yourself on how tribal gaming operations work? Or all of them? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question, and it's really hard to kind of rank, where those things stand as level of importance. I can give you my perspective. I've had the unique opportunity and pleasure to serve tribes for the betterment of my career. I'm a 3-term associate board member for NIGA. I currently serve on the board with NIGA in California. I work with ACES. I really dedicate and focus my time, to really work across these amazing groups. And when you truly get to understand and work with and serve at the pleasure of tribes, you really start to see what it's all about. And the companies that take the time to understand that and figure that out will be the successful companies. The companies that want to come in and be transactional, they'll crash and burn. I've seen it happen a million times. The kind of the thing I've always lived by is knowledge plus trust equals empowerment. And if you're coming in, like, you need to understand and you need to know that every tribe is a sovereign entity. I know Marcus hit on that. You're working with Wolfie. You made the correlation to like Europe and the UK, where there's one regulatory entity. In California, each tribe is unique. And to look at them and saying, well, I have to get licensed with all these tribes, it even goes a layer below that. Like, each tribe is very unique and how they do things. And this requirement may not be the same as that tribe. And Marcus hit on it perfectly. Getting somebody in this market, there's very few people that have that level of expertise. Finding them is your key to success to getting into these markets. And it's going in and being respectful, like learning about the tribe's culture, learning about their history, learning about what it's like to partner with the tribes and be a partner with them, and provide them information and education that empowers them about your product, about, that specific type of gaming, be it iGaming or Class 2, whatever it is. Those type of things go a very long way with how successful your company is going to be in Indian country. And when I say Indian country, to go up and work in Washington with Rebecca and her respective tribes is a completely different process to work in Oregon, to work in California, to work in Alabama, to work in New York. Everything is very unique. And what people need to understand coming in from these non-US markets is the uniqueness levels continue to unfold. And you really need to understand that if you're going to be successful. You can be successful in one market and not in another market, because maybe it's the way you did business. Maybe your product needs to change, that type of stuff. But the more you establish yourself, the more that you are willing to learn, right? The more respect that you show, the more information that you provide, the more you value building that partnership, which will lead to business. If you lead with business, you're going to fail. It's plain and simple. I've seen it a million times. So that's, I guess, the best advice that I could give companies like that. And really, Marcus hit on it with, if you get somebody that really understands these markets from the compliance standpoint, that is really going to be your part of your key to success. If you don't have that, you're going to fail right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So
No, go ahead, man.
So one other aspect is, trying to really understand this concept of, it is a sovereign nation, truly, yet it is inside of the United States. That's interesting. One tribal council meeting that I attended, first of all, there was an armed guard to get onto the reservation with, basically an M16. That was a border. I crossed into a border into a different country at that moment. Yet when you got to the main plaza of the government complex, there was a pillar for each of the U.S. armed forces, because there are so many people who, from each tribe who actually enter the U.S. military. So they're from one country, yet they're serving this other country. And, and then in the, at the beginning of the meeting, there was a pledge of allegiance, and then we said a prayer. I mean, so just really understanding all of these different nuances, it takes time. But the rewards of it are really fantastic. And frankly, it's, some of the best relationships. I'm sure Russ and Rebecca have the same situation. I get a Christmas gift from one tribe every year, which is, my family history, but written in their language. I mean, you're not getting that from BetMGM. You're not getting that from Caesars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Sorry, Rebecca, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I think
Okay.
You guys did an amazing job of capturing the uniqueness of the relationship that happens in Indian country. We're looking 7 generations ahead, and we're looking to benefit not only ourselves, but the entire surrounding communities. And, I think people have this perception that they see these big properties in some areas, and that Indian gaming is making Indians rich. And that's not the case. Often these properties are in rural areas that are the only opportunity for a job, and it's really helping pull people out of poverty. And I think when you start to understand where the money goes, then it changes the conversation.
That's actually what I was going to say is I think the biggest distinction, and this is, from my experience, seeing this happen, commercial gaming, you have a lot of the big national brands, and that money, when they do really well, the shareholders benefit. And in tribal gaming, when that revenue from gaming directly goes to schools and medical clinics and healthcare and roads and infrastructure. So that's how tribes are able to fund their own land and their own reservations and their own communities. And so it's when you come in, to kind of wrap up what you're all saying, when you come in and it's all about business, no one cares. Like, you have to develop some trust that they know that you care about those next 7 generations, that this is going to take care of them. So great comments from all of you. I just
have one thing on that, and Rebecca, that was, I mean, that, being in this and being as immersed as Marcus and I and Jason are, that was a great point to bring up the 7 generations, and looking at that, these decisions that are happening, when you have a company coming in that is like, well, this sales cycle is taking too long. Well, I'm sorry, but they're deciding if this is beneficial for this generation, the next generation, into the future. So when they're making decisions, they're taking their time. And again, this is things that happen, back at a leadership level. So you're going back to, a tribal chairperson or chairman or chairwoman, you're going to elders, these decisions take time, right? These things are very important, and it's going to happen in the time frame that the tribe feels comfortable, not what your sales cycle is, or you're making a quarter or that type of stuff. And I've noticed that the companies from Europe, and again, I'm just kind of with a broad stroke here, they're looking for a faster timeline. They're looking for quicker results that way. If you're coming in with that mindset, again, that's going to lead to diminished returns and failures and really things that are not going to make you happy if that's what you're looking at from a business standpoint. I know people that have gone in. I've personally gone in, and it's taking a year, 18 months, 16 months to get to the point where you can talk about a business deal with a tribe, because it took that long to really establish a relationship and trust and things that of that nature. It takes time. You have to invest your time, and the benefits will come. But again, the uniqueness of every market and every tribe, that timeline is what it's going to be. And you have to understand that. And you have to be able to articulate that back to your shareholders, to your folks within your organization that are like, hey, Marcus, why is it taking so long? Like, how do you articulate that back, without actually getting there, and being a part of those meetings and understanding really what is happening from a cultural, from a generational standpoint. So.
Awesome. Listen, we're running out of time here. We got a couple minutes left, so we're gonna do the hot seat question, and that is to anyone that is watching this right now, what would you recommend as far as just current developments that they should keep an eye on? Is it other states that with pending legislation? Is it taking a look at what the Seminoles in Florida are doing, or how other tribes are currently operating iGaming or sports betting? 30 seconds. Russ, what do you think people should be keeping an eye on?
I think all the things you hit on are definitely key points. I'm going to kind of leave that to Marcus. Where I'm going to go with is, because it's the world that I live in, if you want to get in this market, you want to get in at the regional levels. You want to get into WIGA. You want to become a member. You want to become a member of CNIGA, the Oklahoma Association, OIGA, Arizona. Get in, go, become a part of it, listen, learn, network, establish your relationships. That is key to understanding the market and really seeing and starting to build those relationships. So my point would be, go in and be a part and become of and be entrenched and entwined within these amazing regional tribal associations.
Great advice. Thank you. Marcus, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if we zero in on the online opportunity, watching in Michigan month by month to understand really what's taking place there, because you've got the combination of commercial and tribal market access, some tribes going on their own. we really want to watch to see what happens with the land-based revenue as online continues to grow, because if as we should see, all boats should rise. But if it doesn't, then that could cause problems with other states in the future. Look at California. Look, Arizona's already going for casino. Look at Iowa. Louisiana, I think, as well, moving quickly. And so, keeping your eyes on the market monitors out there is going to be very helpful for you.
I was going to say you should take a look at Washington. Speaking of that, Rebecca, final thoughts on what our attendees
I had to
should
leave
be
that
checking.
for her.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I thought, oh, when you think of it that way, then Washington would be a state to watch as well, because tribes, as we needed to under IGRA, negotiated our compacts and have set in place a system that works for Washington, where tribes will be offering this at our properties. And we are introducing for the first time in Washington a mobile component. So I think it will be interesting to watch from the start and see how this works out. So.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank all of you again for joining me. Great conversation. And thank you all for attending SiGMA, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.